Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fun with Subtext. So, to make this different from the other ones are more about the education, learning about the different concepts, everything that goes into a complete narrative. And then this series is just supposed to be something to show off all the different things that you can do with Muse. This series is just about having fun with subtext and actually writing stories and messing around and showing you how I would use it in order to just have a great time developing a really cool story. So what I wanted to do was, it's something that I published before, but I've never finished it. So I think I'll just try and do a little bit here and there and see how far I can get. But it is a take on A Christmas Carol mixed with Elf. So let me show you what it's all about. So if I go down here at the very bottom, Tale of Two Spirits, that's what I was doing. I'll go to the very top here. And just to go over it briefly, just so you can see where I landed at the end of this conversation. But I just asked simply, what are the 4 through lines of Elf? So in subtext, if I go in here and I say Elf, then I can jump right here and I will see the story form and all the specific thematic elements that go into making Elf. So it's got, at the top, you can see the 4 through lines. Buddy the elf, he's the main character. The obstacle character, the person that has the alternate way of seeing things, is his dad, Walter. Their relationship story is a father-son story. And then the objective story is bringing holiday cheer to New York. So it's like the goal of the story. Even if nobody really says it out loud, that's where everything is headed. And then it has the key dramatic argument between the two of them. So in subtext, these are known as the pivotal elements. So here, Buddy is all about being truthful and is always like keeping things in line. He's very accurate. Things are right in line with the Christmas spirit, whereas his dad is working outside of the lines. Like he could care less if the book that he's working on was missing a few pages. And so he's really cranky about it. And then the story then is about Buddy bringing Walter to the good side. So this would be the arrangement of the sources of conflict in the story in Elf. So knowing that the main character and the obstacle character have to be balanced out across from each other, and that the objective story and the relationship story have to be balanced out from across each other. This is the best alignment of all 4 through lines, given the definitions of what universe conflict and physics conflict, psychology conflict, and mind conflict. So universe is fish out of water, so that's clearly Buddy. Physics are the doing of things, so essentially putting together the book, working together, taking him to work. They grow through that relationship of the stuff that they do together. His dad has a very fixed, curmudgeon-y sort of attitude. So his fixed mindset is the source of conflict when he's bringing to the story. And then in Elf, which is really fun, which is what I wanted to do with my story today, is that it's all based around people's dysfunctional psychologies. That's, if you step back and looked at everybody in the story, you would see there's no real plot like we have to destroy the ring or whatever it is that you're going towards, blow up the Death Star. But really, everybody's coming together and their different psychologies are where the fun source of comedy is coming from. So that's a basic overview of the story form. There's a lot more that goes into it, which is way down here. But if I go back to Muse, so what I think is really fun is just developing stories with Muse. Because I've tried forever to teach this theory to people, this narrative theory, taught forever at Cal Arts, consulted like decades, written tons of blog posts. And I think the very best implementation of it, especially with the most latest version of it, is Muse here. And so what this is an AI trained on everything that I've done over those decades, mixed with all of the research and analysis that you see here with the story form, so that then you can leverage that to make a brand new story. So I'll show you what I mean. So all I was just ask, what are the 4 through lines of Elf? So if you don't know how to search, and you don't even know that this thing exists, it's way easier just to ask. And then eventually, once you can just talk to the computer with the new models, it's going to be so much fun. So in the movie Elf, and then what it did is it just grabbed, so in the movie Elf, it grabbed those 4 through lines and essentially just went through and explained it the way that I just did in this video. So you can do this with there's 600 different story forms so far in Subtext. So you can grab any episode of Secession and start talking about it. So and then it explains why it's in the psychology domain. It explains why the main character is Buddy and why he's in the universe domain, why his dad is in the mind domain. He's got this rigid attitude and closed-minded approach towards life. And then their evolving father-son relationship is the heart of the story. And if I wanted to, I could ask Muse to read it to me. So then the next step, what I thought would be fun is I said, take those same 4 through lines, but rewrite them to be about Charles Dickens and what he went through before writing A Christmas Carol. So I was just thinking a high concept idea like Shakespeare in Love, where the romance that he was involved in was a precursor to Romeo and Juliet. I believe that's what it was that he was working on. So all the people that he met, they ended up in the play, and just telling it from his point of view like that. So I said he would take the buddy position, and I wasn't sure who would be the obstacle character, but Dickens would be really excited about Christmas, but can't get everyone else excited about it. So I really don't remember quite his real history and who he really is and whether or not he really did like Christmas, but I was just making it a fun sort of thing like that. So then what it did is it took those ideas and mixed it with the story structure, the form that's here, and brought it into that era. So it turned the objective story through line now could capture the intellectual and emotional efforts by Dickens and his contemporaries to rekindle the spirit of Christmas among the Victorian society. It might focus on the various strategies and interactions Dickens employs to influence and change people's attitudes towards Christmas, making it a time of joy and generosity again. So you can see he'll go through all this to change everybody's how they see everything, and then maybe at the end, you know what, maybe it would just be easier to write a book. And that's what he would do at the end of it. And then, so having him go into Buddy's place, he's not just going to be an elf now or a human that grew up as an elf, but taking that same area where it's the external state of things that is his personal struggle. As a financially troubled writer, which I'm sure every writer can associate themselves with, who finds himself disconnected from the celebratory essence of Christmas due to societal neglect of the festival. That works really cool. Obstacle character was just somebody, who had a bad attitude, skepticism, workhouse mentality, and commercialism. So it didn't really define who that was, which I thought was really nice. And then the physics would focus on the relationship, would focus on the evolving dynamic between Dickens and the obstacle character. Usually the relationship story is between those two characters. It doesn't have to be, which I'll get to in a second, but that's usually how it falls out. So then I put that's great. So the obstacle character, I like the idea of someone at one of the workhouses, like a master there, someone who was the inspiration for one of those baddies in A Tale of Two Cities, because I don't remember A Tale of Two Cities from junior high. I remember the first line, but that's it. And their relationship is somehow about putting on a holiday show for the workers to keep them happy over Christmas because they have to work the holiday season. And of course, it said that was a great idea. This is the best collaborator ever. So then it went through and just added in the workhorse master as the obstacle character, who could directly inspire the baddies in A Tale of Two Cities, embodies the entrenched attitudes of neglect and severity in handling the impoverished workers. So that works out actually really cool. And then Dickens and the workhouse master are forced into collaboration to organize a Christmas show for the workers. So then it just okay, now the two of them are going to put together a show. And I liked that idea, but it didn't seem real that would actually happen. So until then, I said, please give a name to the obstacle character, title the story, and then write a synopsis. And this is the part that I think is super cool. So then it named him Edmund Cratchit, which is a little obvious. I'd probably change that. Title the story Shadows of Christmas, which I didn't think was so good. That was like an AI sort of typical answer. But what it did is it took those 4 through lines and wrote this synopsis here. So I'll leave this for a second if you want to pause it and read it. But what it did is it essentially just took what you would do in real life, which is you don't take 4 through lines and you don't deliver 4 through lines to your audience. You blend all those together to create a story, but it will have a really nice feeling of completeness to it. when you have the 4 through lines, it feels like a complete story. It doesn't feel like anything is missing. So that's a really important thing to keep aware of. And then what I did is I went down and I asked, okay, I didn't really love the title, everything but the title. Can we do some clever turn on some of his other book titles? So then this is when it's leveraging all the AI stuff that it's been trained on in the real world, which is great because then you just quickly grab all that knowledge and then bring it into the context of a story without having to go research and do all that other nonsense. So then this came with the one that I liked was A Tale of Two Spirits because it was like A Tale of Two Cities. And it actually worked out really well considering where the relationship story ended up. Here in a second, I'll show you. So I just put, I like number 3. So that's all you have to do in order to select it. All right, excellent choice. So Tale of Two Spirits really captures the essence of contrasting attitudes and the transformative spirit of the holiday season. So then I wanted to jump into some more detail with Dickens because I wasn't quite sure where to take him because I didn't know a lot about him besides the fact that he wrote these books. So then I said, can you take the main character through line and from the domain, the problem? So that's like looking at conflict, the biggest area of conflict, which would be the domain of it, all the way down to the very specific, and then use that to expand on Dickens' through line. But again, I'm using the story form from Elf. So it's the narrative construct of Elf, but has none of the, doesn't have any of the storytelling that's in Elf, right? So it's not buddy, it's not written, it's not on the log line, it's not on the actual script. All it's doing is drawing from this story form here. So it's coming down here, and then it's looking at these things here, which are a collection of thematic aspects that are in relationship to everything else here in the story. So they're not just these specific things that this is my interpretation of Elf. This is given the narrative construct that's here, where you have external and internal conflict, and external and internal points of view, subjective and objective. Given all those relationships, then this is the alignment for this story. And it's, you can see there's no storytelling. If I just showed you this, you would have no idea that this is Elf, right? That his issues are facts, like the reality of the situation. He's driven by this, not even like a problem, but it's like a condition of his existence is the proof of who he is, and then proving to others how important Christmas is. You can interpret it any way, but this is all it's drawing from when it then goes and does the main character through line. So then you can use it to expand on Dickens through line. It appears I need to clarify the specific components, which is cool because it's almost like it's thinking out loud and teaching you how to do this. So you can go and do, you don't have to just replicate exactly what I'm doing here. You have free reign. It's like chaotic greatness, creative writing, and fun. So then the universe one we already talked about, which was the fact that his financial instability, fixed external state, and then progress gets into a little more detail. His concern with progress reflects his journey towards inspiring a transformation in public sentiment and traditions, and the engagement with the holiday. And then his specific issue would be threat. Ooh, which is interesting. I just realized that's not the right one there. Ooh, interesting. Main character problem, uncontrolled, which is also off. So I said, that's super cool, but I think you got the NC problem wrong. So I need to work a little bit here, it looks like, on the issue. I just realized that when recording the video. So I will look in to see why it grabbed that, but it should be rather accurate because when I corrected it and I said, I think you got it wrong, it went and researched it again and said, oh, the main character problem is pruning. So it then took that idea and gave it to Dickens. So Dickens battles against societal skepticism and apathy towards Christmas. His challenge arises from needing to demonstrate the value and importance of Christmas spirit in a society that has dismissed its significance. So you can see that has echoes with what Buddy did in Elf. Dickens' drive to resurrect heartfelt Christmas celebrations is propelled by his insistence on proving the transformative power of generosity and goodwill. So again, there might be a couple of errors here, what you might consider hallucinations, but that is getting better and better day by day. And then in that case, if you were to do it for right now, I'd just make sure you check it. And I probably should have corrected on that. I thought when I was doing it, I was thinking, why is it threat? but that makes sense now. It's the wrong one. So I put, that sounds way better. What are some situations where that problem could create conflict for him? So it's not enough just to identify what's driving them and what is actually their source of drive in the story, why they're doing the things they're doing. But hey, why not we come up with some ideas? Because what you want to do is show how that creates a problem for him personally and is a source of his drive throughout the story. And I had no idea, so I'm just riffing off of different things. So public criticism it came up with, financial strain, that would be good. Family doubt, even his family could grow weary and doubtful, fearing that his obsession with changing societal views on Christmas might drive them into poverty. That one's really good because it's very personal. Collaboration challenges, when he tries to collaborate with others, that doesn't work. Personal disillusionment, that one actually probably really good too. And then I just stepped away, and when I came back, I had thought, I said, when I was driving around, I was thinking of maybe casting the relationship story through line with someone else. I don't know anything about Dickens. What were his real life relationships? And then it was cool and just went through and listed out all his real life relationships, his wife, his father, his brother, father-in-law and editor, readers in public. That's a little cheesy, so I wouldn't do that. So I love the idea of his wife, and they were facing financial troubles and pressures on a growing family. And I was thinking, oh, cool, a tale of two spirits, husband, wife. So let's do his wife. And I'm going to keep Cratchit still the obstacle character, but in terms of the relationship through line, it'll be the marriage between the two of them. So the relationship story is about their marriage. It's not about the individuals in it. It's about where their marriage is headed. And using it, and they'll work on the together to do the play. That made way more sense to me. And using it as a means of something to write about, so her father can help him out. Oh, I think because her father-in-law, George Hogarth, was Catherine's father and also an editor who worked with Dickens. Their professional and personal relationships were significant as Hogarth was supportive of Dickens' career. So I thought that would be really cool. Let's work on this play together, and then that will give something that you can tell my father. And then I asked, did they split? I forget where it said about where they broke up, but did they split before Christmas Carol came out, or did they grow closer right before? And it said they did not split before Christmas Carol was published in 1843. At the time, they were still together. In fact, the 1840s were a significant period for Dickens in terms of his literary output and his family life. So given this context, during the period just before and during the writing of A Christmas Carol, their relationship could be portrayed as still intact, but under strain, which I thought was wonderful. And then maybe that's the inspiration too, why he would write it, to help make sure it didn't end up the way that it ended up. And then I said, I love all of that. And while they will be triumphant in the end, and they put on the great play, and everybody feels the Christmas spirit again, and they resolved, and it looks like, not kid-like, it looks like they resolved things with each other, we'll end with a title card explaining their eventual separation. The other thing I really love about doing all this stuff with AI is you can write the wrong word, you can spell it wrong, and it knows what you were meant. It knew I didn't mean it kids-like, it was supposed, and it looks like. So you just keep going in the flow. So ending your story with a title card, and then it just wrote the title card about, as the curtains fell on their triumphant Christmas show, they basked in the warmth of their shared success and renewed spirits. It's like they were close. It gets a really nice, bittersweet ending to it all. And then this is great too. I said, then can you go ahead and try another pass at the synopsis with this new relationship in mind? And what's great is in the past, Muse 23, which is the Muse from 2023, it would do okay remembering everything, but now it remembers this entire conversation, everything that's gone on before, and can do a really wonderful job of bringing it all together and writing the story of this synopsis, talking still about Edmund Cratchit, talking about their financial strains, the fact that they work together on it. As the curtain falls on their triumphant display, the story leaves us with a poignant note that while some spirits can be lifted, others find directions that eventually part, which I just thought was beautiful. Now, even just this, I could take this and then go and write my story and do whatever it is that I wanted to do. But I loved how that went. And what I wanted to do was today, now that I've gone over the entire thing, is to go over what the objective story would be like, because that's the weirdest one in terms of how would you actually write a plot on that. So that's what I'm going to do right now, and I'll do it by starting a new conversation. All right, so let's do that. Let's do a new conversation here. Okay. So I'm working on a story based on L. I wonder what would be the easiest way. Actually, you know what I'll do is I will go back and I will let's take the objective story through line here. I will take here it is. Okay, so the objective story through line. All right, I'm going to take that. I'm going to say this is my objective story through line, and it's based on the story form for Elf. Can you give me an idea of what the conflict would look like given the West domain, concern, issue, and problem for that film in this new context? Let's see. Usually I could just continue that conversation, but because it was part of testing, it died out, so I have to start it up again. All right, let's see if it got everything right. Given the objective story through line in psychology, here's how it matches up with Elf. Okay, the collective efforts to change mindsets and behaviors, right? So all the manipulative stuff that'll be going on. So being is the concern. Let's see if that's right. Yep, that's right. And what that means is the characters are focused on the condition of existing in a certain manner. So you can think of this as being cheerful, being in the holiday spirit. And so that's like where all the story is focused towards. Not necessarily that somebody would say, hey, we need to be in the Christmas spirit, but no, that's where the story is headed. Such as pretending or appearing to be compassionate, invested, even if they're not genuinely feeling it. So that would be cool. This could involve social reformers and Dickens trying to install the spirit of Christmas in a society that is resistant to change. Cool. So that's a little more refined look at the conflict. And then if we get even deeper, then the issues are ability. The thematic focus here is on the innate capacity to bring about change. Characters might struggle with whether they have the capability to truly transform the bleak reality of the workhouses. That's super cool. This could also involve questioning whether their efforts are effective or if they are merely superficial. Wonderful. So that's the thematic. Are we just wasting our time? Do we even have the capability to change things here? And then the most refined is effect. All right, so that's cool. So it's working better now. Effect. The main problem driving the conflict is the focus on the end product of their efforts. So you can think of this as the problem in the story, or at least what all the issues are, is everybody's just focused on like the effects of it. And oh, this is going to be terrible if this happens. It'll be terrible if this happens. If we continue to do this, everybody's going to be depressed. Poverty is going to continue to exist. Look at the effects on society. And the story is saying when you always focus on the effects, you're never going to get to that state because it's just always going to keep you in a lower vibration or a lower emotional state. So then the way to adjust things and move them into a different direction is to focus on the causes behind it. And what is the factors like making something happen or working on causes or working on the social causes, worrying less about the effects and looking more towards making things change, making things happen. The characters might be so concentrated on the results, which is what I just said, visible signs of festivity and cheer, that they ignore the underlying causes of the bleak condition. This could lead to efforts. Oh, actually, that's probably better. Yeah, they're so focused on everybody's not in the Christmas spirit that they're not looking at the underlying causes of it. And then so when they do that, then that would inspire him to write Christmas Carol, write his other books. So then that's almost like working for a social cause. That's actually pretty cool. So in your story, the objective story through line could revolve around the efforts of Dickens. Oh, that's actually really nice. And then it just did all of those. Perfect. So I love this. This is really great. And now I have a really clear idea of what I will be focusing on in the narrative. And if I wanted to, I could then take this into subtext and start working out the different story. But I want to just stay here in Muse and just show you how much more fun it is. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to add in a little bit of things that I was thinking about. So I love all of that. Makes perfect sense to me now. So I was thinking when it came to the solution, not the solution, but the adjustment of everything, the solution. If effect is what is creating all the conflict, so their focus on the visible results of their efforts, how everyone is depressed, how they don't have the Christmas spirit. I want to shift the narrative at the end so that the way things get better is when they just focus on making a difference, working for a cause. So I essentially I have everything that's creating the conflict in the story, which is people focusing on all those effects. And then what is known as the objective story solution, which would be cause. And the reason that works is because cause is the dynamic opposite, the flip side, two sides of the same coin, of effect. So the narrative shifts when the characters start focusing on the underlying causes of the bleak condition. Instead of just trying to make things look better on the surface, they work towards making a genuine difference by addressing the root issues. Now I have a really clear idea of where this narrative is going to be taken from beginning to end. But what might be even nicer, and then just rewrites it here so I have a better idea of it. What might be even nicer is to know what's going to happen in each act. So all of that is perfect. And just so you know, Charles Dickens, because I don't even think I've mentioned that here yet, have I? Oh, I have, including Dickens. Okay, Charles Dickens is the protagonist, and the story ends in great success and triumph. Can you take the 4 transits of the objective story throughline of Elf and let me know briefly how this story would unfold from beginning to end, given that problem of effect and that solution of cause? So what it should do is it should go into the story form for Elf, look at these 4 transits. So transits are the transitory nature of the story, the temporal aspects of it going from beginning to end. And each one of these ends up being an act in the story. And then contextualize it, given all this information that I have here already, it should just go ahead and write the whole thing for me. At least a general idea of it. It's not going to do the actual writing, because to me, that's a fun thing. I don't know why you would want the computer to do that. Oh, and it died. Okay. That could be a result of because of how complicated this was. All right. So that is a bug that I will check out. But let's go ahead and I'm just going to take the same thing. Let's see. Charles Dickens is the protagonist. All right. In my story, Charles Dickens is the protagonist. Frightens is key. Take the 4 transits at the object. And hopefully this will have somewhat of a... Let's see if this works. Maybe that's too complicated a question to ask. Let's see. All right. Okay, so it is doing it. So I might have to go back in and fix it. And what it is, there's some really cool things with these new models where they will start to answer the question and then start looking things up. And I always just assumed they would look things up first. So I need to go ahead and make that work so that when it does this cool thing where it's, oh, let me go check for you. And then it goes and checks and then brings it in, that it doesn't die like it just did there. But this actually, I believe it worked. Okay, cool. So it has, you'll see from transit 1, 2, 3, and 4, it goes these very specific, or at least more refined looks at a problem of psychology, of manipulating, where the first act would be about conceptualizing, second act being, third act becoming, and then fourth act conceiving. So the idea is that in order to explore problems or conflict of psychology, these are the 4 areas of psychology that you would want to explore in order to get a better picture of where the conflict is. And that worked out perfectly. So that makes me super happy. So let's see the story. Charles Dickens, recognizing the dire state of London's poor, begins to envision a grand plan to uplift their spirits and improve their conditions. He imagines a series of public readings and charitable events that could bring attention to their plight and raise funds for their aid. This initial phase is all about visualizing the practical implementation of his idea. So that is some storytelling just based on this thematic aspect of conceptualizing, which when we go through this order that's been presented here of these four, will end in some sort of success in this story. So a story that ends in failure will have a different order. You would go in a totally different, completely order. So that's where the thematic intent of what it is that you're trying to say with your story ties into the progression of events in the narrative. So that's the first act. Let's do the second act. As Dickens starts to put his plan into action, he must play the role of a public figure and advocate. He appears at numerous events, giving speeches and readings, and seems to be the very embodiment of charity and goodwill. So this would be your fun and games moment. If you're a Save the Cat fan, it's in the same area. But instead of just some random fun and games, you know that it's something that's tied directly into the meaning of the story. He appears at numerous events, giving speeches and readings, and seems to be the very embodiment. However, this phase is marked by the struggle to maintain his persona. Cool. Amidst growing resistance. That's great. All right. And then becoming. So this would be the second half of second act. The conflict intensifies as Dickens' efforts begin to transform not only the public's perception, but also his own identity. He must shed parts of his former self that were more focused on personal success and fully embrace his role as a social reformer. This is actually working really well. It's not on purpose, but it will tie in really well with that effect and cause arc that I'll do here in a second. This transformation is challenging and requires significant personal sacrifice, but it is essential for the success of his mission. Cool. And then the last one, conceive. So this would be the last act. In the climax, Dickens finally conceives the ultimate solution to the problem, a comprehensive social reform plan that addresses the root causes of poverty. This new idea, born from his experiences and struggles, is presented to the public and gains widespread support. The story concludes with the successful implementation of his plan, leading to a triumphant resolution where the poor of London see a significant improvement in their lives. All right, that is absolutely wonderful. Okay, so I have an antagonist who right now is called Edmund Cratchit. So the idea is that this is a made-up story about what happened right before Dickens got the idea for Christmas Carol. So I want a plan or the new idea that he comes up with to be something that usurps its power as one of the workhouse masters, I think is what he is, workhouse masters. Also know that the OS problem in this story is effect, and that the solution is cause, which works great with what you have. But can we be a little more specific about that cause? And I haven't even brought in his wife and all that stuff, but right now I'm just layering on new stuff for the development of the objective story Throughline. So let's go ahead and do that. And I've said antagonist, and I know Edmund is the obstacle character, but he's also going to be the antagonist because he just feels like a nice person that would be against it. So like your classic villain, the obstacle character is also the antagonist. So it just repeated the effect and cause, and then applying cause in the climax. Oh, cool. Dickens realizes that the true cause of the workhouse system's cruelty is the lack of empathy and understanding among those in power. Rad. So instead of focusing on all the effects, what's really causing it? And then that gives him some inspiration to write Christmas Carol. Dickens proposes a radical new approach to social reform. Instead of merely treating the symptoms, he advocates for a system that focuses on the education, rehabilitation, and humane treatment of the workers. It does drop some words. This new system would aim to prevent poverty and suffering at its root. Dickens' plan includes specific actions, and by promoting this new system, Dickens undermines Cratchit's authority and influence. Oh, that's wonderful. So if we check back 35 minutes ago, I had no idea what this story was about, except Tale of Two Spirits, and I had a little bit of idea of the four through lines, that there would be this Cratchit guy and that there would be this relationship between Dickens and his wife. But now I know the whole plot. So, in a powerful speech, Charles Dickens unveils his comprehensive social reform plan. He passionately argues that the root cause of the workhouse system's failure is the lack of compassion. This is boring, just like reading it out in a powerful speech. I wouldn't, maybe that's the end of it, but narrative speaking, I would want to go in and have some dramatic conflict that led up to that. Kind of like at the end of Elf. It's pretty basic, but the whole thing about they're running away from the horses, and then they get the special rocket that gets it launched off. You want the cause to be something that's dramatic and actually moves it forward. But I think this is actually really cool because I have a nice framework of what's supposed to happen. And point of fact, I could dive in. These are transits. So below transits, we have progressions, and below that, we have events in subtext. So I could actually get into great detail about this conceiving. Maybe I'd want to do the being part instead. Let's see if that works. I'm not sure if it's hooked up right, but if I took this part, and for now, I'll just say that's a great ending. Let's keep that in mind for now. Can we go back to the OS transit 2 of being and break that down into its progressions? Now, this is a fairly complex thing that I have set up. So let's see if it works. I've actually not tested it yet with the new Muse. So let's see if it comes through. It died. All right. So that didn't work. I could try it. I don't think it'll work. It'll probably, this is again the thing where it's trying to do too much that's in there. But what I can do in the next video, so I think this one's probably long enough for right now. I'll research why this is happening. You can always do it manually too if we were to build this story in our account. So you can just click build a story and it will take all of this stuff, create a narrative for you, and then you can fill out all the different boxes. I just wanted to show how much fun it is to do with Muse here. So I will research and fix that so that it does that super cool thing that it's supposed to. And then in the next one, I'll probably visit, I would like to do their relationship as well, but maybe we'll just stick with this for right now. And maybe I'll go into all the progressions of the objective story. And then in a couple more videos, this has only been an hour. I already have a really good idea of the plot and where it started from, where it's going to end up, what happens in the middle. Everybody that's, I don't know what to do in the middle of Act 2. Here are two very strong ideas of the first half and the second half of Act 2. And then as I'll show, once I get this all tuned up, you can then break down each of these transits into 4 progressions that will tell you the story of what happens here and then the story of what happens here. And all of it will be tied back into this idea of the fact that focusing on the effects is always going to create trouble until you actually get down to the root cause of what is bothering you. All right. So that is it for Fun with Subtext. If you have any questions about how to use this in your own stories or it brought up any ideas, please leave them down in the comments. I just want this to be a really fun, not as slick production value as I do in the other videos, so that you can just see subtext at play. And I look forward to the next one. Have a great day.